A new Australian film is releasing in selected cinemas over the next week or so, and then is going to digital release on October 18th. A film called The Cost. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the director and co-writer of The Cost, Matthew Holmes. Matthew, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to talk to you. Now, I remember your previous films, such as Twin Rivers, which I think was your first film, and Legend of Ben Hall, and so on. So you make some really interesting films. Tell me about the inspiration and background to The Cost.
Well, The Cost was largely inspired by some newspaper articles that I've read over the years, and some criminal cases that we've had in Australia that have been quite high profile. And it was kind of a response to those news articles and, and the problems that, with violence towards women that is in society, and how do we respond to that? And I thought it was a dramatically interesting story to look at that from a very realistic perspective, and and a potential perspective of how normal people feel and what they might do in a situation like that. So I guess that's really where the idea came from. And I was also looking for something that was I could do on a small budget with a very few actors, and just focus on making a movie about characters.
Okay, it certainly is that, and it's quite a tough movie, I must say. It's I found it very interesting to watch. So tell me about fashioning the screenplay, because you wrote this with Gregory Moss, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. He's a South Australian screenwriter. I'm based originally from South Australia, but now based in Melbourne. We write together online, and again, we're just like two halves of one brain. We finish each other's sentences. We love each other's ideas. We write over the top of each other's work, and yeah, we just bang this story together quite quickly. Actually, within maybe a month or two, we had a very solid working draft that we were going into production with. And of course the actors added a lot of their own character and dialogue on top of what we wrote, but the writing process was very, very quick. Once we knew what we wanted to say with the film, we knew our ending, we knew our midpoint. It was a very organic and very easy writing process.
Okay, well done on that, because it is quite a tense thriller with some interesting twists and turns along the way, which of course we won't spoil for the audience because they should need to go and see the film.
Absolutely.
Now, you have some really good actors there. Tell me about casting them.
Sure. Yeah, they do a terrific job, and I cast them because I wanted to work with the best actors that I knew, and I knew Damon Hunter and Jordan Fraser-Trumbull very well. I worked with Jordan on The Legend of Ben Hall. He had a supporting role in that, but I've been wanting to work with him in a leading role for over a decade. And he's another Adelaide boy. That's how we met. And Damon Hunter was just another actor that I've become friends with and was very impressed with his performing ability. So I more or less wrote the film with those two actors in mind, and knowing that they would be able to bring the intensity and the level of acting that I was after. I had to hunt around a bit for Kevin D, the who plays Troy. I did take the script to a couple of people first, but found that they didn't really want to be in the film because they didn't want to play that part because of the intensity of that role and what that character has to go through. They didn't really want to go through that, so they passed on it. And it was a bit of a search for Kevin, but when we came across him, he just knocked our socks off with his audition. So that's more or less how we cast it. And a lot of the peripheral characters were just, again, actors that I knew that were very, very good, and I just took the script straight to them and gave them and offered them the role. So it wasn't cast in the traditional sense, I would say.
Okay. We should also mention, of course, Clayton Watson and Nicole Pastor, who
Yes.
features in a really important flashback.
Yes, they're both terrific. Clayton was actually a last-minute replacement. We did have a South Australian actor, but then when the lockdowns hit us, we had to recast sort of overnight because they couldn't get into Victoria. And he brought a very, very different interpretation to what was originally on the page, Clayton did, but one that works, I think, even better than what we originally planned. So it's great when actors bring their own ideas to the script. They can do a lot with it.
Okay, okay. Oh, that's great to hear. How long was the shoot?
Well, it was originally supposed to be a 3-month shoot because we were going to be doing it only on weekends, and but we started just as the pandemic hit, and we were forced into a lot of lockdowns. And so a 3-month shoot on weekends turned into a 13-month shoot over weekends. So it ended up being a very long shooting period through lots of different seasons and with a lot of gaps in between. So it was a challenge for us to maintain continuity. Sometimes the landscape, we came back and it had changed somewhat, and we had to work around that. So we had a lot of production problems to work around as we were doing it. But we also found that what it gave us was a lot of reflection time, and we could cut scenes together that we had shot earlier, see things that weren't working, go back and try again. And in some cases, we rewrote and refilmed entire scenes again because we could see that we could do better and we could, enhance the film. I mean, the flashback scene that you mentioned with Nicole Pastor, that was added halfway through the shoot because we felt that we needed to see that flashback, and when it wasn't part of the original screenplay. So while it was a problem having COVID and lockdowns, in another way, it benefited the film because we got to craft the film very slowly and very deliberately, and we didn't have to rush, which a lot of productions get rushed,
Yes,
especially
yes.
low budget. Especially
Oh,
low budget films, they're on the clock, and then they're running out of money very quickly.
yeah.
But because we were an independent film,
Yep.
we could sort of set our own pace, and we just crafted the film until we felt we got it right.
Oh, excellent to hear that. But wow, what an extended period, and
Yeah.
of course for the actors that was challenging for them to maintain their characters and the continuity of their characters through
Oh,
the
yeah.
story.
Absolutely. It was definitely a challenge for all of them, and one that they had to, every 2 or 3 weeks they'd have to come back to do another weekend's worth of work and get back into that headspace, and watch scenes that they'd done before to try to find where they were. But they were exceptionally professional and very, very dedicated to getting their roles right. So it really was a big collaborative team effort. I mean, all films are very collaborative, but on like no other film I've worked on before did the actors have so much input to the way scenes were blocked, changing dialogue, enhancing dialogue, and things like that. So it really was a big group effort.
Okay, okay. Well, very well done on that. Tell me, did you use a single camera or did you use more than one for coverage?
This one we mostly shot with 2 cameras. On very rare days, we shot with 3. But it really depended on the scene. It was an extremely small crew. We couldn't have had more than a dozen people on our crew. It was very, very small. And sometimes it was just one camera. It really depended on what we were doing on that day. So somewhere between 1 and 2. But we did shoot for a lot of days. It was, if you were to compare the cost to, other films, Australian films that maybe shoot for 20, maybe 30 days, we had a lot longer than that. We shot for nearly 40 days. Again, because we were reshooting things as well. So, like I said, we were very much taking our time with the film and crafting it as lovingly as we could.
Right, right. And locations, I get it was mostly shot in Victoria.
It was all shot in Victoria. Of course, all the suburban stuff was shot in Melbourne, and the rest of it was shot out at a place called Lauriston, which is just outside of Kyneton in regional Victoria, in the Macedon Ranges district. I was able to use a beautiful property that was owned by some people that did all of my horses and coaches for The Legend of Ben Hall. We shot a lot of that movie out in the same region that we shot The Cost. In fact, just 2 minutes down the road is where we shot a large majority of Ben Hall from The Cost. So I was back in the same territory, but because I'd made so many great connections and so on in that region, I knew I could go to them to shoot this film as well.
Okay, okay. Well, it looks good on screen, so it all worked out
Yeah,
very well.
it's a beautiful area, and it's got a lovely the bush has got a kind of a spooky quality. it's got a very grey, ghostly sort of quality, but it also
Mm.
has the beauty of all the green ferns that cover the ground. So it's quite unique in that way. So it's very visually stunning.
Okay. Now, I do want to ask you something about the violence in the film.
Yep.
And I was flinching a lot of the time because the whipping and all that that Kevin has to suffer and so on. Um, Tell me about that, because I gather you would have shot that very carefully to make sure there was no actual harm to actors involved.
Yeah, it was. We had to be very careful with how we filmed that. So a lot of safety measures were employed to make sure that it was done safely. Of course, we weren't really whipping anybody. We had to, in some cases, use digital effects to enhance things, which is great about modern technology. We can do things a lot safer than we ever could before. But look, it was a very tough shoot physically for everybody. If there were a few bumps and bruises and cuts and things that we get from being out in the bush and doing such physically demanding roles, but we just put safety first and just looked after them. And that's part of the magic of movies, I guess, is that we can fool the audience into thinking that what they're seeing is actually a lot more brutal than what it really was. But yeah, the violence in the movie it's definitely the most violent film I've ever done. I've never made anything this intense before. But we felt that the violence was very important to the film because to really get into to understand the emotional states of these characters, and how strongly they feel about what they're doing, it was important to show the violence and also to show how abhorrent it was, and so the audience could be, like the characters, quite affected by the violence. So it's more of a movie that deals with our relationship with violence rather than glorifying violence. And so in order to delve into it in such a deep way, we really had to show the violence for it to have the impact that the story required.
Yes, exactly. And as you said, I think at the outset, it's also about violence against women, which is a really strong issue that we're still grappling with.
Yeah, it is unfortunately still a societal issue. It's a tragic issue, and I think for me it was, like I said, it's about our relationship with violence. And what I was interested in was, as humanity, across the board, often our first instinct towards violent offenders is to either wish violence towards them, which I found was a very interesting sort of dichotomy of human nature, is that we tend to launch in with the eye for the eye,
Mm.
um, sort of violence, which is very, very understandable. It's very human, but I wanted to explore what does that actually look like if you followed it through in a very
Mm.
real context, and look at revenge and vigilante justice, not from the Batman superhero, die hard kind of perspective, where when the villain gets killed at the end and gets their comeuppance, we all stand and clap and cheer, but rather to look at it through, I guess, a more realistic and the sad reality of what inflicting quote unquote true justice looks like.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. And your film certainly portrays that. And I found it really quite fascinating to the very end. So well done on that.
Thank you.
Um, Now, it's interesting to see how the film is being rolled out, because I can see you're doing a number of Q&As in
Mm-hmm.
cinemas, including, I know that there's one on at the Sun Theatre tomorrow, or the
Mm-hmm.
8th of October, and at the Nova. There's one on the 15th of October, and
Yep.
then it's going digitally. Tell me about how this release pattern was established.
Well, Mad Men Films picked up the film for home entertainment and digital, and but the theatrical rights, because the film was not going to be released theatrically by Madman, what I really wanted to do is to give audiences the opportunity to see the film on the big screen. It looks fantastic on the big screen. It is a very immersive experience if you can see it in that environment. So what I was able to do independently was to arrange these very, very limited special cinema screenings as a precursor to the digital release, just so people had the opportunity to catch it before it goes onto streaming and things like that. So as I'm a very independent filmmaker. This was an extremely independent film, and I guess even here at the release end, I'm still doing the independent thing and organizing these screenings off my own back and going out there and making deals with supportive cinemas to show it to people. So that's really what is driving it. So, and hopefully these screenings will, bring awareness to the film, and so when it does, hit on October 18th for home entertainment, people have an awareness of it and will hunt it down and watch the film.
Okay, no, that sounds like a very valid release pattern. So that sounds great. And it's interesting because I've just seen the list of films that have been submitted for the Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts Awards.
Yes,
There are 41, for goodness sake. I
I
don't
know,
know
41.
how.
I
Could
know
be,
it's they seem to get larger every year.
it does, and it'd be fun going through all those. But of course, the cost is part of that. So that's great.
It is. We're very excited that it's up. That it's able to be nominated. We certainly hope we get some nominations. I'm really hoping that the performances in the film will be acknowledged, because I feel that the three lead actors, on top of everybody in the film, but especially the three leads, just did a phenomenal job. And the amount of positive feedback we get at every screening from the performances is it's just fantastic. So I really hope they get a nomination. That would make me very, very proud of them. So fingers crossed. But I know we're this year it's a stiff competition. 41 films. Goodness knows how many actors that would mean are being nominated. That could go into the hundreds. So good luck to all of us.
Exactly. Good luck to you. And one good thing is that there is a category for best film under a certain budget, a couple of million or something like that. So
yes, well, that certainly would fit the cost. Like I said, very low budget film. So yeah, hopefully we're not going to be up against Elvis, so which was $100 million plus. So at least we're comparing apples with apples.
that's exactly right. Well, good luck with that. Well,
Thank you.
well, congratulations, Matthew, on the film, the cost. And I must ask you, are you planning another film at the moment?
I am indeed. We have myself and Gregory Moss. We're quite a tireless writing team, and we have already this year written another thriller, and we are looking to get that shooting very early next year. So fingers crossed we can get that financed. Hopefully the release of the cost will certainly go a little ways to helping that, and hopefully this time next year I might be talking to you again about a new movie.
That would be great. Hopefully that occurs. And just my last question, have you seen anything else of late, film, TV, whatever, that impressed you?
Oh, that's a very good question. What have I seen recently? I have been quite snowed under with everything that I've been doing,
Yeah.
and I haven't been out to the cinema very often, and I haven't been watching a lot on telly. So no, I'm at a bit of a loss as to even think of something that I've been a new film that I've seen. I have caught up with some very old movies and so on, but as far as the
Okay.
new release slate, I'm a bit lost. Sorry. So
That's all right. Well, what's an old movie
I'm
you caught up with that you really liked?
Well, to tell you the truth, I went back to Ben-Hur, which was one of the first movies, the Charlton Heston Ben-Hur. I rewatched that the other day, which was a childhood favorite and one of the movies that really made me want to get back into movies. But I haven't seen it in such a long time, and watching that again, I was profoundly amazed at how, even though it's such an old film, how well even today it still holds up as just a stunning piece of cinema that still takes your breath away. So
Hmm.
that was lovely to revisit after so many years, and to see that cinema is one of those things that even after decades and new technologies, to realize the work that people have done in the past on movies. I think we can get swept up in modern movies and all the spectacle, but sometimes when you look back, there's something even more spectacular about the movies of the past. So for me, that was quite a revelation and a wonderful rediscovery.
Okay, no, fair enough. I endorse that. The chariot race sequence is incredible, especially the editing of that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And to think that they were doing it, over half a century ago,
Yep.
knowing how difficult it is to make films as a filmmaker, I look at those films and I just marvel, how did they pull it off?
Okay, no, excellent example. And another excellent example that we want audiences to go and see is the Australian film The Cost, releasing at selected cinemas with Q&As and then on home entertainment from October 18th. And we've been speaking to the director of The Cost, Matthew Holmes. Matthew, thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh, my great pleasure, and I hope to do it again very soon.
Okay, all the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.